Good afternoon and welcome to the Osceola's Thursday edition of Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham and I am joined by Mark Salva, who is in Memphis. I am in Gainesville, Georgia. Kurt Weiler is on his way to SMU for the Osceola, and the other guys are, as most of you are that are watching, listening, or will watch or listening, are getting ready for Hurricane Helene. And we wish everyone the best of luck in dealing with that. It looks like right now it's going to get the eye is going to be close over Tallahassee or close to it. So obviously thinking a lot about the people in Tallahassee, people in the North Florida area, and then even obviously Georgia, South Alabama, some of the places that this storm is going to hit, South Carolina, North Carolina, even where Mark is at in Tennessee. So we hope everyone's ready. Hope everyone survives it. But we had planned to do this show all week, so we're going to pop up on here and do a short show. We were supposed to have Julio Gonzales with us from the SMU rival site. We had some technical issues, so Mark is jumping on with us.
Did you check down by the schoolyard?
Do what?
Did you check down by the schoolyard?
I did not.
Julio's down by the schoolyard?
I did not do that. Okay. But we tried for about 10 minutes to get him on, and we could not. But we're gonna, and he may try to pop back on here, and if he does, we'll get some of his breakdown on Florida State. On SMU, excuse me, but he was not able to join us, and that is usually the theme of our Thursday show. But obviously, Mark, you and I have seen SMU a couple times. You watched them last night. I've watched two games, and they have it's a good football team, 3-1. Their only loss comes to what looks to be improving BYU team who beat the heck out of Kansas State last week. And the interesting thing about SMU, Mark, is they've had some drama around their quarterback situation, and they have gone away from Preston Stone and have moved to Kevin Jennings, who started the first game for them last week. And there's Julio trying to get back on. Let's see if he does. He might be able to help us with that. But they have moved to Kevin Jennings, who is the more dynamic of the two, meaning he can run and pass. The only offensive game they struggled against with Preston Stone as the starting quarterback was BYU. But just kind of your overall thoughts on SMU, Mark, from what you've seen.
Yeah, so they're a team that knows who they are and knows what they do well. They're going to try to run the ball. I think a lot of our folks will recognize that offense, and you see Gus Malzahn all over it, right? Same kind of thing. They're going to try to run the ball. They're going to try to run the ball with power runs, zone runs, some leads and pulls, and then they're going to throw the ball opportunistically off of that with this quarterback. So, controlling the edges is going to be really key with these guys offensively. The quarterback is not an elite thrower, and their passing game is not an elite passing game. It's pretty simple, but everything plays off of the run. So their ability to run, quarterback run, zone read will be a big thing for them, which is something that we sometimes don't handle real well. A running quarterback. I'm not going to mention Castellanos unless everybody go into convulsions. But but yeah. So that's who they are offensively, and they got some really good backs who like to bounce it outside if things get jammed up, and they got some speed and they can run real well.
Go
ahead.
I was just gonna say Julio might be with us. I don't think we're gonna have video, but we'll see if we can get him on stage and see if we can hear him this time. Julio, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Can y'all hear me?
We can.
Okay. I had to get on my Chromebook because for some reason my computer wasn't letting me do anything. Been having issues with it. So, and somehow the camera on here messed up. I guess that happened when I dropped it the other day. So I guess it's time to get another Chromebook. But yeah, I can hear y'all now. I'm sorry for delaying y'all here.
No worries. We went ahead and started, but and obviously we sorry can't see you, but we do appreciate you jumping on, and we're going to blame this on the hurricane down here. It's causing problems where I'm at. That it's a rather large storm we're getting ready for, Julio. So I think that may be part of the reason we're having some technical issues. But and we probably won't keep you on as long since we can't see you. But I did just want to get some thoughts from you on SMU, and Mark may have some questions too. But the first question I got for you is, obviously this is SMU's first ACC game as a member of the conference, and obviously it's a home game and a big home game coming off a big win against TCU last weekend. Just kind of tell us what the excitement level is around the SMU program as it kind of gets ready for its first game against FSU and as an ACC team, and kind of what the atmosphere will be like around campus and around Ford Field as Florida State fans get ready to make their way to Dallas.
Well, the SMU fan base, they are charged up and excited. They've been wanting to get into a Power 5, Power 4 conference now for a while. When all the expansion started, of course, they were trying, wanted to get into the Big 12, being from, here, but they weren't given the invitation. So with them getting into the ACC, they are hyped up. I'm sure y'all have heard or read about when they did enter with the media rights and all that. I guess they're not getting anything from the TV contract. So the donors raised a whole bunch of money, which was crazy, but really not surprising, because they love football. And they're going to be excited because it's their first ACC game. And they're still excited from last Saturday from beating TCU, winning back the Iron Skillet. And I'm sure it was even more sweeter now when beating Sonny Dykes, who left
that's right,
to go to TCU. And then with him getting ejected, I think that was probably the icing on the cake, to add to the win. But to answer your question, it is going to be crazy, I think, tomorrow on Saturday. Like I said, they're still going to be hyped up, and then just making their ACC debut, and then welcoming Florida State, just because Florida State, they're having a down season, but still, it's Florida State coming to Dallas, so they're going to be excited. Still are from last week, so it's going to be rowdy, I believe, at Ford Field Saturday night.
Assuming go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, what are the expectations from the fan base and maybe in general just the program about how they're going to do in the ACC? What's the kind of the feel around there?
I think that they're coming off winning the American last year, so they of course they're just excited just to be in the ACC, with the chance to contend and get to the college football playoff. I think with them this year, they had that winning streak, which was snapped against BYU a couple of weeks ago. Looking back at that game, they probably should have won, but they could not score when they were in the red zone against BYU. Looking back at it, after what BYU did to Kansas State last weekend, which Kansas State was one of the favorites to win the Big 12, I don't think they were I don't think the fan base was too upset with that loss against BYU. But to answer your question, I think that they believe they can compete for the ACC this season, and if they can get on the right foot and win their opener against Florida State, going to go a long way with that as well. So,
yeah, Mark and I were talking before you got on, and obviously, the second year in a row they've had a tight quarterback battle between Preston Stone and Kevin Jennings, and they went, I guess, 2-1 with Preston Stone as quarterback. Really had a tough day offensively against BYU in their only loss. And then Rhett Lashley makes the change to Kevin Jennings last week. Kind of talk about the quarterback battle. Is there a chance we'll see two? Has Rhett decided that Kevin's the guy, and what does he bring to the offense?
Well, you mentioned that Preston started 3 games before they decided, until after they lost to after the BYU game. That's when Coach Lashley decided to go with Kevin Jennings. when they both played, when looking back at the BYU game, when they were having trouble against the BYU defense, I mean, they had it the whole game, but it seems when Jennings came in, they were able to move the ball a little bit more efficiently, and with him, he can run as well. So that opens that up as well, as where Preston Smith is not a running quarterback. I think that I don't think Preston Stone will – I don't think he'll play tomorrow. I think they're set with going with Jennings up until, if he struggles tomorrow or once he does struggle. But even at that, I don't think that they'll replace Jennings, because it's like they say, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one. So I think he just wants to go with Jennings unless something happens. That's just what I'm guessing.
Well, listen, I think there are a lot of Florida State fans that would disagree with you. They have two quarterbacks and they want to see both of them play. So we're at different spots, that's for sure.
Right.
With where these teams are this season. Listen, even though he's only started one game, Kevin Jennings is SMU's second leading rusher with 25 carries for 137 yards. That's second in both categories. And obviously, there's some design quarterback runs, but he's also made some plays with his feet. I believe SMU's got 14 scramble opportunities on the year, and those have produced, I believe, over 100 yards in rushing. If I go back and look at my scouting report, I believe that's what it's going to tell me. But yeah, so the kid can definitely run. And of course, and doing my scouting report, you've also got some good running backs, but and he's been an accurate passer. I think his adjusted completion percentage is 70%. And you guys like to spread the ball around a little bit. I believe I had 12 receivers with multiple catches, at least 2 catches. But just tell us a little bit about the running backs. I know you guys like to press SMU likes to press the edges. They seem to like to get the ball outside the tight end quite a bit, but not as deep with the injury to Jalen Knighton. But the Brashard Smith kid seems like he's a special back.
Yes, sir. Brashard Smith, I believe he's ran for 380 yards and 6 touchdowns. But they also have Derek McFall has rushed for almost 80 yards as well. So, of course, when you look at Rhett Lashley, they're mostly – you think SMU, especially when Sonny Dykes was here, air raid. So that's what the past couple of seasons, there were more passing. However, this season, they've been running the ball a little bit more, and I think that's because Brashard Smith has been having a great season up until this point. That, and then the offensive line, added a couple of transfers as well. So they're still gelling and trying to get, that unit going. But like you said, they've been spreading the ball around to like 12 different receivers have at least one reception. But I think running is where their running game is they need to try to get going, especially against the FSU front, which I believe has 13 sacks, which is 7th nationally, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So I think that's going to be the matchup right there to watch, is how the offensive line handles FSU's front.
How do you think that? I mean, that was the one thing, and I think Mark will agree with me on offense. That seems to be the weakness for SMU was up front on the offensive line, and typically, what I've been told is the biggest difference between programs that are moving up to a Power 4 conferences is usually at the line of scrimmage. That's kind of what I've seen in watching film of both. Not Cal's already in one, but SMU particularly, and then but they've done. I mean, they don't give up many sacks. They do give up some explosive plays against the run. But how do you think they will match up against a Florida State defensive line that seems to have found itself at least the last 2 weeks?
Well, I think what's gonna help that as well is by Kevin Jennings being able to he's mobile. With him being able to do that, that would help them out as well. But like I said, that's going to be, I think that is going to be the key matchup there. And ultimately what's going to decide the game is how they can deal with the FSU front. I think if they come out early and can run the ball, that's going to be good for SMU, obviously. But I think that FSU front, they're strong, so that's going to be the key matchup. The whole game, in my opinion, is doing that. And what's going to help them out, like I said, Kevin Jennings being mobile. Then if they can run, then of course that'll open up the passing game for them as well.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit. Go ahead, Mark.
Julio, I want to ask this. So I was looking at your roster. I noticed there are a lot of kids from South Florida, a lot of Miami transfers, and kids that just went to high school in South Florida. Have you got a sense that, this is a special game for them for that reason? I mean, have any of them mentioned that at all?
Not that I have heard of, but I would think it is just, from them being there. And of course, Florida State, opening against them.
I noticed that, and I didn't dig down. I know some of them went to probably the same high school as some of our kids, probably. So there will be a little bit of familiarity with some of those guys, especially like Rashard Smith. So yeah, I imagine they may have a little something extra for this game based on that.
Yeah, I was looking and saw quite a bit of South Florida kids. So I mean, it's going to be they're going to be hyped up just because it's the first ACC game they're playing at home. Like I said, they're still on cloud nine from what they did to TCU in the rivalry game last week. But yeah, with them playing against, Florida State, I'm sure that's going to be a big thing for the South Florida kids as well. So,
yep. I want to ask you about a couple of the receivers. In today's spread offenses, you don't see a lot of teams that have a tight end as their leading receiver, and R.J. Maryland is the starting tight end for SMU, and he's by far the leading receiver. 13 catches for 191 yards, 14 yards per catch, which is second on the team, or third on the team with people with 2 catches or more. What kind of player is he, and who else in the receiving corps do FSU fans need to pay attention to?
Well, you hit it right there with R.J. Maryland. He had he got the winning touchdown pass against Nevada because SMU was struggling that game. And then once they got it going in the fourth, I believe they scored 10 points to win it 10 or 13 points to win it in the fourth. And that was who caught the winning score was RJ Maryland. But yeah, you're right. Not too many schools have a tight end that run the spread as their leading receiver. But another receiver they have is they have Jake Bailey, who has 9 receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown as well. And Romelo Brinson has 7 receptions. So like you said earlier, they don't have that go-to guy. You could probably say maybe right now Maryland is, but they've been spreading it around, like we said, they have 12, 13 guys that each have a reception. So eventually I think you would need to get, that number one guy. I think Maryland could be him. But those 2 other guys as well, Brinson, Bailey, and even Keyshawn Smith, another guys to look out for as well.
Yeah, I'm assuming Bailey's their deep guy, the guy that can take the top off the defense. He leads the team in targets with 20 targets but only 9 catches, and Maryland's got 17 targets for 13. So I'm assuming Bailey's probably a guy they try to stretch the field with.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Let's move over to the defense. That seems to be the strength of this team right now. 50th in total defense, 25th against the run. susceptible against the pass so far. 67th in scoring defense, about middle of the pack in third down defense. Tackles for loss, though, you are disruptive against the run, 45th in the nation, 6.5 TFLs per game. It really got a lot of experience, and looks like they're pretty deep. I mean, I know up front they play 2 defensive ends a bunch, actually 4 defensive ends between Robertson, Harrison, Hunt, and Jefferson, and then I don't think Lockhart spells Booker as much, but just talk to us a little bit about the overall philosophy of this defense. Are they aggressive? Are they more bend and break? And just as a reminder to everyone listening, we have Julio Gonzales from the SMU Rivals site with us, and having some video issues, but he's at least giving us some information, even though we can't see him on the Mustangs. But just talk a little bit about the defense overall, then kind of break it down level by level.
Yes. Well, they're giving up 22.8, I believe, is what SMU is giving up. I wouldn't necessarily say their defense is a bend don't break, because their defense, you could say, probably a toss up with their defensive line or their linebackers as the top unit of the group. Like you said, they rotate on the front, and their secondary is probably don't want to say the weakest, but not as strong as the defensive line and the linebackers. They got 2 safeties, though, that the safety group is, a little bit stronger than the cornerbacks. But like you said, the front 7, they're pretty strong. You have Isaiah Smith, who's leading them with 11 tackles, 3 for loss, and 2 sacks, and they can just spell each other, him, Jared Harrison, Hunt, and Cam Robinson, all have 10 tackles or more.
Yep.
So, like I said, to me, I think I like to have a strong front, but it's either or of how you're looking at it, if which one's a stronger unit, linebackers or the front.
Yeah, they got a really active middle linebacker in Kobe Wilson, and then the 2 guys on either side of them, Jafari Harvey and Ahmad Walker, pretty good players too. Now you do have 2 really good active safeties, and I believe it's Sanders and I can't remember the other guy's name. Is it Moses, who has 3 interceptions?
Moses has 3 picks, and then you have Isaiah Nokaboya.
Yeah.
Yeah, those 2 guys as well. Yes, sir.
They seem to be pretty deep. I mean, you've got a kid named Jonathan McGill who backs up at 2 positions, but he's 5th on the team in tackles. How fresh are they? I mean, it seems like they play a lot of people on defense. What's their rotation like? And do you think that are they deep enough to stay fresh against this Florida State offense on defense?
Yeah, they do play quite a bit, and they are deep back there. Like I said, that's one thing that they do have, depth back there. The rotation, I had something about the rotation, but yeah, they're deep back there, which is going to help them out playing against Florida State. So
how do you see them attacking Florida State's offense, particularly with the struggles Florida State's had? They hadn't really done anything really well until last week. They found a semblance of a running game. Do you think they'll dare Florida State to run and play coverage, or you think they'll stack the box, try to stop the run, and say, "Hey, DJU, you got to beat us"?
I think that's what they are going to do. Is I would lean, because DJ has struggled. So I think I would stack and force DJ to beat me. And if DJ does beat me through the air, then you live with that. But I think that's the way I would lean, is trying to stop the run and have DJ try to beat me. And, DJ, he was a 5-star recruit for a reason, so he's just been struggling, Hopefully, I think he can find a little bit of that back. Hopefully, it's not this weekend, But I think that's what I would do is stack and stop the run and put it all on DJ's shoulders is what I would do. That's how
you and everybody else, Julio. You and everybody else.
Right.
All right. So one last question for you. Overall thoughts, and you can, if you want to make a prediction, that's fine. If you don't want to, that's fine. SMU is a 5.5-point favorite. It's the first time Florida State's played as an underdog all season, which is baffling to me. But they are. And but how do you see this game playing out? Do you think there's going to be a home field advantage for SMU on Saturday night? And if you want to make a prediction, go ahead. But just how do you see this as a close game, a game that either team can run away with, or how you see it playing out?
Yeah, I honestly think it's going to be a close game. Florida State, they're down, but they're still Florida State. Had that excellent season last year, and I think it's going to be close, like you said. I think it's 4.5 or 5 is the.
Well, it's gone down. Then yeah, it was 5.5 when it opened, but 4.5
yeah.
gone down.
So I think it's going to be a close game. The crowd and everything, it's going to be electric. I think just because being the first ACC game, still hyped up from last weekend, and then Florida State's just a big name. The Florida State name just coming to Dallas, So I think it's going to be a close game, probably closer than what people think. I'm not too big on predictions because when I do that, I'm always wrong. So,
welcome to the club.
So I will hold off on that right now. But I do think it's going to be a close game. And like I said, I think the key to that is going to be how the SMU offensive line can deal with Florida State's front seven, because they can bring it, the pressure. So that's how I'm seeing it. Close game, and whatever line, offensive line, SMU line, or Florida State, whatever one wins that battle, is going to go a long way in deciding who wins Saturday night.
Now, I don't know if this is somebody that's actually – I don't know if this is actually Lawrence Toafili or not. That'd be pretty cool. But I think we got somebody claiming to be Lawrence Toafili listening, and he likes Florida State, which is, of course, only natural. All right, so Julio, number one, tell everybody – number one, thank you for joining us today.
Can I ask a quick question real quick?
Yeah, you can, Mark.
Julio, what is the capacity at Ford Field, and how many are you expecting? Those could be two totally different things.
I want to say I'm not 100% sure actually how packed how the capacity is at Ford Field. I know they've expanded, but that game is going to. It was crazy there last week. Of course, we know why, because TCU, the Iron Skillet, and all that good stuff, and then especially with next year being the last Iron Skillet game, which will go on pause after 2025. So that's why it was, crazy.
Yeah.
But
is it like 70? Is it 80? What is it?
I don't think it's that much. That's a good question. I'm not.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be crazy, loud, and packed. Yes, sir. Exactly. Is what's gonna be like on Saturday night.
All right. Well, Julio, we appreciate you joining us, man. And tell everybody where they can get your content if they want to go learn more about SMU before this game starts on Saturday night at 8 p.m.
Yes, you can go to our rival site at it's the Hill Topics at rivals.com. And then you can see me on Twitter at JR_Gonzalez10 as my Twitter. And then SMU has theirs as well as the Hill Topics at Rivals Twitter as well.
All right. Well, Julio, man, we appreciate you joining us, and we will be back in touch, I'm sure, throughout the season and check on you guys and see how the Mustangs are doing in their first year in the ACC. And obviously, if we can help you on our end, please let us know. But thanks for joining us. And we're going to take a quick break, and then Mark and I will be right back, and we'll have some more thoughts on Florida State versus SMU. Then we're going to talk a little bit about that situation at UNLV, which led to a situation at USC with kids entering the portal in the middle of the season. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we will be back in about 90 seconds. And yes, Mark, you do have to see Dan Mowry in a bow tie.
Nice.
Thank you, guys.
The Backshore. That stretch of fluffy sand just beyond the reach of the salty waves. The place reserved for volleyball nets, cookouts, and the air filled with fun and laughter. Celebrate the Backshore with Backshore Apparel. Grab an amazingly soft and comfy Backshore Apparel beach hoodie to keep you protected from the sun's harmful rays. Or the Backshore revamped trucker hat, a modern twist on a classic favorite. Crafted from moisture-wicking fabrics, ensuring they're lightweight and breathable. Not to mention durable with their unique floating feature. Shop now at BackshoreApparel.com. And right now, FSU fans get 10% off your order with code FSU10. Hey Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans shop. Finding an experienced lawyer you can trust is crucial. With over 50 years of combined litigation experience, the attorneys at Mowry Law Firm are dedicated to providing our clients with exceptional legal services, focusing on car and trucking accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death. Call 904-824-7799, MowryLaw.com.
All right, Mark, we are back with the Osceola Seminole Sidelines, and we're with the second half of the show, and we want to thank Julio Gonzales from the SMU site, smu.rivals.com, called The Hill Topics, for all his insight on the Mustangs as they get ready to take on Florida State. All right, Mark, we're back, just you and me, talk a little bit about this football game.
Hey, first off, I'm not hating on the bow tie on Dan Mowry, but he has given a new name to the term locker room lawyer.
Well, and there's quite a bit of that going on around the country right now. We'll talk about that after we talk about the game. But listen, how'd you feel? You know, sometimes after I do scouting reports, I get a better feeling one way or the other. And by the way, Mr. Toffoli, your son played a heck of a game last week. 19 carries, 80 yards, something like that. They filled him up and got him the best rushing performance of the year. But Mark, how do you feel about after you hear what he had to say? Do you feel better about the FSU's chances, worse about the chances?
I'm still processing all of that. You know, I'm watching some of the games. We were talking about their offense, and look, they're gonna. That offense is built on the running game, the quarterback run, and then opportunistic passing. It's going to be real important for us to, number one, tackle that quarterback when he decides to run. Chunk plays are going to come from him. I think we'll probably handle if we control the edges, because they're going to try to out leverage you with wings and motions and counters and things like that, and crackbacks and all that kind of thing. They're going to try to get the edge on you. If we can control the edges real effectively, I think we can help mitigate the running backs. We can't let them bounce outside. And then after that, the design quarterback runs, they're going to try to outnumber you. When you have a back in the backfield and a quarterback and you spread it out and you do design quarterback runs, you're short a gap. So how are we going to handle being short a gap with the quarterback design runs or the zone read, and how we're going to control that guy? That's going to be critical. They're going to try to get chunk plays in the running game with the quarterback, I believe. And then they're just opportunistic in the passing game. They're going to pass off of the run action, or even on running downs. So how we handle that. Do I feel good about it? I know we have the personnel to do it. Will we be tuned in, and will we have a plan for it? That's going to be a key for me, right? And then defensively, he's right. He was talking about how their front seven is a strength. I think their second level is definitely a strength. Their second level can run and they can hit. They tackle reasonably well. I think where they struggle some in the secondary, their secondary doesn't necessarily tackle great. So that could be, helpful for us if we can just break through and maybe LT can get some big runs and make some people miss, and then just handle the blitzing and because they don't their front seven doesn't necessarily disrupt you with their penetration. They do that through their second level, so they'll blitz and they'll blitz all kinds of crazy angles, and so. Eye discipline from the offensive line in the backs and blitz pickup and in the running game will be really critical for us being able to pass the ball down the field. So if I would feel good about it if we have a plan for all that, because that's nothing new for us and we can handle it if we're dialed in and prepared. So, that's just kind of the way I feel.
Yeah, the one thing, listen, I've said this for 2 weeks. Of course, now I watched their first 2 games. I watched a little bit of the TCU game, not a ton. I watched Nevada and BYU. And both those games, I thought that SMU's offensive line was dominated by the opposing team's defensive line. And I think Florida State's got a huge advantage against their offensive line on the defensive line. I really do. And I'm not sure, particularly if we continue to see the kind of effort we saw by the FSU's defensive ends last week, all 4 of them, particularly Peyton, Jones, and Lolehi. What SMU has tried to do is press the edges of the defense, and I don't know that they can do that. Of course, I don't think they want to run it inside if Farmer's going to play the way he's playing.
Right.
But I do agree with you. The quarterback's going to the change in quarterback's going to be interesting to see, because now you do have to have an extra defender in the run game, because he is going to be a guy that can tuck it and run it, RPO type stuff. But it is going to be interesting. But I do like the way Florida State, particularly if they played the way they did last week up front, the front 4 and linebackers continue to get better. And I don't know if you're getting Cam Riley back or not. He obviously only played 15 snaps last week, according to PFF. So if they get him back and Blake and Juice continue to play the way they are, and Lundy, I do like the way Florida State's front 7 matches up against SMU. Do you think that SMU can press the edges and run, get the perimeter game going against an FSU defense that is still a fast defense for the most part?
I mean, look, if they line up straight and try to, run at us, no. Of course not. I don't think they can. Will they try to use some deception? Will they try some, misdirection, tight end or reverses from the slots, or some schemes where they try to influence block and maybe get Peyton and Marvin and Sione to widen out and then kick them out. If they do little schemey things to kind of try to get the edge, there's things they can do that can, if we're not prepared, or if we don't react correctly and get our eyes in the right place, they can fool us, right? I don't think they're going to line up and run over us. There's no way that's going to happen. But there are some things they can do if we're not ready that can give us some issues, and it may pop 1 or 2 based on those things, and we can get it corrected on the field. That's fine. That happens. That's football. But just being ready for all that kind of stuff is the only thing that kind of got me worried, because we don't seem sometimes to react real well, at least early on. We didn't, to things that were happening and adjusted during the course of the game.
Yep. All right. On the other side of the ball, obviously, how do you think SMU's defense is going to attack DJU and this offense? Obviously, Florida State had some success in the running game, particularly the first half of the game against Cal. I'm not sure Cal's as good in totality as SMU. SMU's as good as Cal was on defense. I think they're good. I don't know if they're as good as Cal was. But how do you see them trying to attack this Florida State offense, given what we know about it after 4 games?
Well, like Julio said, if I'm them, I'll make DJ try to beat you, right? That passing game doesn't scare anybody the way it is right now. But I don't necessarily think they're just going to bring the house. I think what you're going to see is a lot of movement with the front 7, a lot of slanting, a lot of twisting, a lot of cross blitzes with linebackers, and with those, like I said, those second level guys can run pretty good and they tackle pretty well. So I think you're going to see a lot of movement and how FSU contends with that movement is going to be key. You know, our offensive line is going to have to be really, again, tuned in to alignments and you know, to, you know, if this then that, you know, their combinations are going to have to be on point. Backs are going to have to be patient, press the point, make cuts, because you know, when you do a lot of movement like that, sometimes you slant right out of something, right? So if the backs are really patient, you might can catch them on a slant or some kind of blitz where there's an open gap, and they can pop a big one. You know, and at the same token, they might slant into something, and you know, you get a TFL. So, you know, that's if I'm them, that's kind of what I'm thinking they're going to do. And then they're going to, you know, obviously, I don't know that they like to play man coverage necessarily, but I think we're going to see some version of it, you know, and try to make DJ, you know, beat you with his arm.
Yeah. Now I do want to ask you this on the run game. We've talked about there's several things here. You've had Jalen Early take over for Jeremiah Byers at right tackle. We don't know whether that'll be the same or not. Now, Mike Norvell said that the Byers and Robert Scott were trending in the right direction, but the offense started trending in the right direction with Jalen Early at right tackle in the run game last week. The other part of that is you and I both had some questions about why FSU was rotating 5 running backs in the game. We go back to the Georgia Tech game. I think 5 played in the first half, and that includes Jalen Lucas, who's obviously not playing. And then Roydell Williams is now hurt, did not play last week, and we saw Lawrence Toafili kind of take up the slack, and then obviously spelled by Cam Davis. Do you think maybe just the fact that they're not trying to get so many guys heated up in the run game can help those 2 guys get going and have, you know, and obviously they got to stay committed to the run game against SMU if they can. But do you think that they can get the run game going in a more consistent fashion with just having 2 backs primarily sharing the load?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of kind of keeping it tight with that. And the reason is, like everything else in the course of a game, you got to kind of get used to it, right? And in terms of rotating offensive linemen too, because, you know, the running game, that requires a lot of combination blocks and a lot of fits and a lot of whatever, you know, guys working together. And I think it really does lend itself that in the course of a game, if you keep the same guys in there, they start getting a feel for how a defense is going to react, what a defense, you know, plan for the day is. You make adjustments on the sideline. You know, you start playing together and you start doing these things, and the back starts seeing it, you know, more and more. That it's such a feel thing in the running game. You know, when during the course of the game, you start getting a feel for how guys are going to react and how these combinations are going to come off, when to come off for the second level defender, you know, where alignments are, all those little nuanced things that can make it happen. So if you keep consistency in the personnel, the more that manifests itself earlier in the game, the more success you have maybe earlier in the game. So I'm buying what you're selling there, Bernard.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate when people agree with me. Most people don't. So I appreciate it. All right. So we got James on here. Come on, guys. Unless no offense does a 180, it's going to be impossible to win. Listen, I think you're right, but I also think that we know as for the totality of the season, James, that this offense is not going to be good enough if it continues to do what it does. It's not going to be good enough against Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami, probably even Florida, and possibly North Carolina, although they could not stop they couldn't stop anything last week against JMU. But my opinion is SMU personnel-wise and on both sides of the ball is a lot like Cal and Memphis were. So I could definitely see this game being a low-scoring game in the teens where both teams score in the teens, and that's what Florida State does, 21, 13, 14, 12. I believe there's point totals for this year. And I think everyone's getting well, James, that's kind of what happened last week, man. 14-9. That's not much different than 7-6. And that's the recipe right now for this team until they show us otherwise. But listen, I do think Florida State defensive line, if it plays up to its capabilities, does have a chance to dominate this offensive line. And you would think now, obviously, they got some transfers in on their defensive line, but you would think Florida State would have an advantage on the offensive line, even though it has not played well over a group of what is, a freshly minted group of 5 team played in the Power 4. So I could see this game being a very close game like we saw this week. And I think if Florida State's going to win, that's how it's going to have to play out. What about you?
Well, first of all, James, kudos to you for saying a 180 and not a 360 like I heard some people did, number one.
Well, 360 just gets you back to where you were.
100%, right. That's the joke, Pat. Yeah. But look, here's the deal with the offense. There are opportunities out there. The way people are playing us, there are plays to be made. And, eventually we're going to hit on some of those. We can't miss them all the time. I mean, I just think that eventually we're gonna hit on some of these and generate some points. I mean, it maybe it's incremental progress, and we get better throughout the course of the year, and we end up scoring more points. That's my hope. And look, we're all in a state of hope right now about the potential of this offense. Look, we have decent players. I mean, we don't have world beaters on the perimeter. That's well documented. We have pretty good backs. We got really good backs. We got a decent offensive line. Now, again, they're not world beaters, but they're experienced and they should know what they're doing, and they ought to be able to come off the ball and have an impact on the game. Yeah. Obviously it's contingent on the quarterback making the right plays, making the right calls, getting us in the right plays, all those things. And so, yeah, we're in a hopeful situation, but here's the thing: there's an opportunity there, and eventually we're gonna have to cash in on some of those opportunities.
How do you think this team, SMU team, stacks up against Florida State's last 2 opponents? If you had to rank these 3 teams in order of best to worst, where does SMU fit in that list with Cal and Memphis?
I think they're probably a little better than Memphis in the front 7. I think their linebackers are better than Cal's linebackers. I think Cal's defensive line was better. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and now Marvin, you asked a question. At what point does Mike play a different quarterback to get experience for the future? We talked about this, I believe, on Tuesday. I think we all agreed that if you don't play Brock or Luke in this game against SMU, it would be unfair to throw them in against Clemson, Notre Dame, or Miami. I think you've got to ride it out with with DJU if you don't start getting one of those 2 guys some reps in the game. In fact, I think we'd like to see some of us like to see a wholesale change, but what we said on Tuesday was he needs to go full Billy Napier and at least play Brock Glenn every 3rd series and just see if that gives the offense any spark. But I don't think he will make the change. I don't think he should make the change after SMU if he has not played either one of those 2 younger kids at quarterback. You can't wait. I mean, I guess he can. If they tells them to go in, they're going to go in, right? But I don't think it's the right thing to do. Why wouldn't you get them some reps against competition that's not really going to quite to be up to par? Clemson's going to be much better on defense than SMU, Memphis, probably Boston College or Georgia Tech for that matter. Cal, I mean, it's probably the best defense they face. Miami's a good defense. Notre Dame's got a good defense. So if they don't play them this week, I don't think you see them throw Brock or Luke in unless something were to happen to DJU in one of those in that midsection of games. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I think I would at least give Brock, assuming he's earned the right, in practice and in his preparation, I'd give him the 3rd series. I think you have to, and then maybe every other from there. If there's not a discernible difference between the 2, if he ends up moving the ball and scores, ride the hot hand. I think you got to give him a chance just to see what you got. I mean, definition of insanity time, right? You keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And I think that's kind of where we are right now with this offense, with the quarterback situation. Because look, the excuse of the offensive line not playing, but they're playing better, is gone. The running game, hopefully we get a little bit of running game, with all things being equal. Because I think early on we were saying there's so much going on wrong that, it's not really all DJ's fault. We got to fix some of these other things too. And I think we're on the course to fix some of these other things. So now, let's give Brock a look and see what he can bring to the table.
Yeah, and I think if you're an FSU fan and you're some of your reaction or expectation is based off the 66 points that they scored on TCU, I think it's very, very important to notate that 21 of those points against TCU were scored by either the defense or special teams. And TCU imploded right off the bat against SMU. And if you go back and watch their game against Nevada, which was their opener, and then their next game against our third game against BYU, I don't think you're going to see a team that's capable of scoring a ton of points each and every week. And that's why I think Florida State, if they can dominate the line of scrimmage on defense like they did last week and not give up big plays in the passing game and hold SMU in the teens, I think you got to hope that you can muster enough offense to come away with another hard-fought victory like Florida State did last weekend. But listen, I said 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when this 3-game run started with Memphis, Cal, and SMU that based off what I had seen watching games on television and going back and watching them on YouTube, and unfortunately I can't watch coaches tape, but I thought that SMU was the weaker of these 3 teams, and I still feel that way. And Florida State's beat one of these 3, so I think there is a certain way Florida State has to do it based on what we've seen on the offense. But I'm certainly, after what I saw last week, I don't think I'm wearing garnet gold glasses, but I know Florida State plays a certain way on defense, and that's how they're going to have to win the games. I think this bears repeating. Last year, FSU's fan, and I'm not saying that this year's defense is last year's. It's not. They don't have as much talent, but everything's relative, and it's about who you're playing against. But, everybody made the argument last year towards the end of the season that Florida State's defense could carry the day against the likes of Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, and whoever else was in the damn playoff last year. I think this FSU team is not I think it's got better personnel. They're as good at football players as SMU. I don't know, but we had a couple guys on here last week that are familiar with FSU's personnel. They said FSU's got better personnel just about every team they're going to play against. So anyway, I think there's a chance. I'm not ready. I'm not going to just say it's going to be I'm not ready to say it's impossible to win. I do think that Florida State has to play a certain way to win this ball game, but we'll see what happens. That's why we're going to watch the game. I mean, we all have our opinions of where Florida State's going to win or lose, but I guarantee you, everybody on this podcast, YouTube show will be watching. We wouldn't be on here talking about it and caring about it. So we'll see what happens. All right. Speaking of insanity, Mark, we got a lot of insanity going around college football right now, and some interesting news out of UNLV yesterday, where I cannot remember the kid's last name, but the kid's named Saluka, who had transferred in from, I believe, Cornell or an Ivy League school to Holy Cross. I can't remember which of the two. It really doesn't matter. But he transferred to UNLV. UNLV has started off 3-0 and had a big game coming up this weekend. And the kid announces on Wednesday that he is pulling the plug on his season. He's entering the portal and transferring over a disagreement with UNLV on what he was going to be paid. The kid says he was only paid $3,000 out of a promised $100,000. The school says that's not right. The school's saying that he came in and tried to negotiate the deal after the 3-0 start. The truth is probably somewhere in between. I don't believe the kid totally, and I don't believe the school totally. I think both of them are trying to paint a picture. The truth will come out because there will be text messages and all of those things. But did you ever – and listen, they had another kid that came out later that day, and then you had a highly thought of defensive tackle at USC that did the same thing yesterday. He entered the portal before he played in his 5th game and has announced his intentions to transfer. Now, that was over more playing time. His father mentioned that they were promised that he would start. I don't believe that. I don't believe any I hope I don't have to believe that. Florida State fans are getting me concerned that may be the case on something else on their end. But what do you make of this? It's not going to slow down. We're going to see players are going to have 4 games and not be happy or know that they've improved their stock. what was your reaction when you saw these three stories?
First of all, I want to pull my hair out. Second of all, this is the new world of college football. You're held hostage now by money and kids' desire to make money, or people around them advising them. This is why it is so critical when taking transfers, when negotiating these things, and just bringing somebody into your locker room. You got to vet these guys. You got to know what makes them tick. You got to know what their why is, because if their why is money, they don't need to be within 100 miles of your program. If that's their motivating factor to do anything, that's got to be red flag city. Get away. I don't want anything to do with you, because I've told the story before, but I remember when Marvin Jones Sr. was coming out, and I spent 2 hours on the phone with the New York Jets scouts, just asking me every nuanced detail. Obviously, I played with his brother Fred, and I knew him a little bit, and obviously as a graduate assistant on that staff, and checking bed check, and just knowing, they were asking me every detail I could possibly say about Marvin Jr. And I, after about 2 hours, I said, "Why are you guys talking to me so long about this?" They're like, "Look, here's the deal. When you're going to invest a lot of money into somebody, money doesn't necessarily change a guy. It just makes them more of who they are." Right. And so that's why NFL teams, or anybody that's going to give a lot of money to some of these kids, they got to know exactly who they are at their core. And if money's the motivator, get them away. And can you be 100% on that? Of course not. No. But it just drives me nuts to think that's why. Look, you and I both, we played this game for 3 squares, a roof over our head, and they paid our college education, which I wouldn't have gone to school if it wasn't for my college scholarship. And I'm eternally grateful, because it made a better life for me. Right. If that's not enough for some people, I get, okay, fine. Everybody's situation is different. But for me, it was plenty. And honestly, I'd play for free if I could.
Yeah, listen, it's a hard mentality to wrap your head around. But I will say this: listen, if the kid was told he was going to get paid $100,000, they should have paid him $100,000. And listen, if that is true, listen, there's already been one of the reasons everybody thinks the kid that signed with USC out of Florida last year, the center, and his name escapes me right now, transferred to Florida. One of the reasons it's rumored that he has left USC is because they were not making the payments that they were supposed to make to him. There was an NIL shortage, if you believe that. That's why the kid transferred. So it's not only I've heard it happening at other schools with coaches I know around the country, where a kid's not making what they told him he was going to make. And so if they promised the kid $100,000 and he'd only gotten 3 of it, you can't blame him. And then on the other side of that coin is, if that promise wasn't made and he decided to transfer there, and he went in and tried to negotiate a deal because they were 3-0, and he held the school hostage over that, well, he's a bad person. That's a bad actor. And you're probably better off long run with getting him out of your locker room and going to your next quarterback. But I think more of these decisions, listen, I think the NIL part of this, Mark, is different for every kid, right? Yeah,
it is. And you know what? Schools and collectives, I mean, you're going to have good money managers and bad money managers. And maybe, I'm sure everybody runs their different collective differently, and if they're, if some people are running it with the hope that they're going to have this much money and making promises based on that, shame on them,
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's a whole new world out there. There's going to be good and bad managers of it. I kind of like the way we do it. It seems like we try to reward the guys that have been productive, coming in, retain our talent, not necessarily overpay for high school talent, but, with the season keeps going like it is, we're going to lose that discount for sure.
Yeah. Well, listen, the issue is going to be that this will turn it just like, 10 or 15 years ago when bowl opt-out started to become a thing, and it was one or two high-profile guys, and then now NCAA throws in the transfer portal, and now you got guys that I think they've proven themselves and found a new home, and they're opting out for bowl games as well as the NFL guys. Guys that are going to transfer to another college after the season. I think what we'll see, unless they put some guardrails on this, and the only foolproof way to do that is to make them employees of the university. That's a whole nother ball of wax altogether. But it's the only foolproof way to make sure this kind of shit doesn't happen again. But I do think we're going to see this. I think this year will just be the start, right? If they don't put guardrails on it or get it reined in, they will start seeing more guys enter the portal or declare themselves, I'm not playing after 4 games for whatever reason. In this case, with the UNLV quarterback, it was money. With the USC kid, it apparently was playing time, that he was not a starter. He'd been promised he was going to start and was not playing enough snaps. So his dad told him to transfer, and that's what he's going to do. I will get. Supposedly he's going to practice, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, the disheartening thing about all this is that there's no governing body regulating any of this. The NCAA is impotent on all of this, and until these, these kids see the results of their actions downstream, obviously they're not thinking about that. I mean, I'm sure the NFL guys would be like, why did you do that? And if they're an NFL prospect and they're meeting with an NFL person, why did you do that? Why, and if it's going to hurt you in the long run, I would think, if if this is your attitude towards the whole, I want to get me attitude, so there's still value in honor in being a good teammate and playing the game and for a school that you love, and a side benefit should be the NIL. It shouldn't be the main thing, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And then another quote. Now, I'm not going to give you the whole quote. I didn't write the whole quote down, but I was watching some video of Mario Cristobal's appearance on SportsCenter last night as they get ready to play a nationally televised game on Friday night against Virginia Tech in Miami, and hopefully they'll be able to play that game. Fish just texted me from South Florida, and they're currently without power down there due to Hurricane Helene. He was going to join us and sends all his well wishes to all our listeners and viewers as he tries to get through the storm. But Mario Cristobal came out and referred to Cam Ward as a lot of great adjectives and flowery words he used on him. But 2 words he used surprised me. He called him a colleague and a business partner. Now, the colleague may have been for the football players, for his teammates. But if you go back and read that quote, I took that as, listen, we have finally reached the professional level of football and at the college level when you have a head coach, an old school head coach, who it came from shocks me more than anything else. If the term business partner came from Lane Kiffin or Hugh Freeze or something like what's that?
Is he wrong?
No, he's not. I'm just saying. But I mean, I was sitting here thinking about it after I read the quote. I could not imagine that coming out of a head coach's mouth, not even 5 years ago, certainly not 10 years ago, and certainly not 11 years ago when I was in college football with Skip Holtz at South Florida and Jim Leavitt. I cannot imagine that they would refer to a player as an equal, a colleague or business partner. Just when you hear that, I mean, coming from – and Mario Cristobal is about as hard old school as it gets.
Do you think Cam Ward calls him Mario?
Maybe, Coach Mario.
No, hey Mario, come here a minute.
Right?
Well, that's kind of what that implies, right? I mean,
yeah,
we're on the same level here.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, if the rumors are right, he would probably be the second highest paid player, or second highest paid person to step on Miami's practice field on a daily basis. He'd be the only guy that's making more than him, if the rumors are true, is Mario himself.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I was shocked that number one, Mario said it, and I guess we all got to wrap our head around that this is a new era of college football, and that quote says it, and so what happened at UNLV says it, and obviously what happened at USC says that we knew things were changing in December of last year with all the opt-outs for the Orange Bowl. But anyway, crazy times in college football. Then Hugh Freeze. Oh, Hugh. He got beat on the field, and he got beat up. He beat himself up in his own press conference. Comes out in I guess it was his Monday, whatever his day he has his a weekly presser to review the past week's game and look forward to this week's game. Said after losing to Arkansas, and which was it was a tight game. I think it's 21-14, but Arkansas's defense dominated Auburn's offense. He said he loves Sam Pittman. But even though he loves Sam Pittman, if Auburn were to play Arkansas another 9 times, they would beat Arkansas all 9 times. I think Hugh is not reading the room when he says shit like that. You can't say that. What do you think when a guy like Hugh Freeze, who was in his second year and has all kind of resources to rebuild a program, and Auburn's got some good players. Regardless, I mean that roster is not barren of talent. At least should have enough talent to beat Arkansas. How does a head coach misread the room like that and not measure his words better than that?
Well, a couple thoughts. Number one, he didn't say that about Cal, did he? When Cal beat him, right?
Nope.
That was thought number one. Thought number two is these guys live in such a bubble. I mean, look. You and I have been in the business, and when you're in the middle of it, right in the middle of the season, you're oblivious to anything outside the walls of that office and that practice field. I mean, you're totally oblivious. So reading the room is not a thing for football coaches, especially during the season. That's number two, and it also shows a little bit of emotional maturity or lack thereof, a little bit, just to say good job. And of course we know that he's got questionable, whatever anyways. And so, that just kind of another indicator that is indeed the case. Right. And so, you say, what job well done. We'll get you next time, good luck the rest of the year. That's what you do, because inevitably if you do come out and shoot off at the mouth, more times than not, you're going to get your butt handed back to you,
Yeah. Yeah, well, just surprised. I spend way too much time listening to coaches' press conferences. There's no doubt about that. But that one kind of shocked me. I had to go back and make sure it wasn't the only stupid. He sold his quarterbacks under the bus. I mean, nothing's Hugh's fault. It never has.
Well, it tells you he's feeling the pressure a little bit too.
Listen.
What else it tells you?
Auburn's not one to dilly-dally around about firing a coach. Just ask Brian Harsin, or the guy before him, or the guy before him, or the guy before him, or the guy. Listen, you go back to when they fired Tommy Tuberville over those many years ago. The day they fired him in his stretch from Ole Miss to a stretch through the end of his last year at Auburn, he was the winningest head coach in the SEC, and they fired him, and their program has not been the same since then. Well, they did get a national championship with Chiswick and Cam.
Oh, Chiswick, yeah. Chiswick.
Yeah, I think Gus was the offensive coordinator on that staff. Yeah. So anyway, interesting. All right, well, we got some big games this weekend. One, the Friday night, I think everybody will be watching, is Virginia Tech at Miami. Hopefully they'll get that game in. But Virginia Tech was supposed to be one of the sleeper teams in the ACC. It's stayed asleep, unfortunately. They got beat again by Rutgers this past weekend. Miami seems to be the real deal. Mark, who you taking in Virginia Tech at Miami? Can the Hokies get the Hurricanes?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look, Miami's looking really strong, unfortunately. Virginia Tech had that nice run at the end of the year and, gave a lot of hope all year and kind of pumped themselves up and have kind of just laid an egg. So really, Miami's just probably too strong for them right now.
Yeah. A big game for the Louisville Cardinals and Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame is a must-win game for them, I think, more than likely for their college football playoff hopes. It was only already a loss on their docket, and they still got USC and a couple other teams that will probably battle them pretty hard. And obviously they lost to Miami of Ohio, somebody like that. So obviously they could get beat any day of the week. But who you got, Louisville at Notre Dame?
At Notre Dame?
Yep.
That's a good one. Louisville can be a tough team if they're up for it. I know Notre Dame is struggling a little bit, especially on the offensive line. Louisville is one of those 3-5-3 teams that likes to bring guys from all over the place. And I know Notre Dame has some young tackles they can struggle on offense a little bit. And, with Riley Leonard, is he hurt? He's not hurt, right? He's up and running.
No, he's going as far as I know.
Yeah. So, that's gonna be a tough one. You know what? I'm gonna go for the upset here. I'll say Louisville
All
pulls it out.
right. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Louisville too. I like Braum as a coach. I think he's a good coach, and listen,
it's an opportunity for them, right? It's an opportunity. Yeah. It's a big game opportunity, high visibility game. They usually play pretty well in those games, and Braum does a good job.
Yeah, and if the ACC is going to be, I think it's going to be a dogfight up, with about 4 or 5 teams for see who gets to the championship. So this would be a big resume builder when the College Football Playoff Committee looks at playoff teams if Louisville can indeed get to the ACC championship game. Oklahoma and Auburn, that'll be an interesting game. Both those teams have not looked great this year. As you mentioned, Hugh Freeze could be under more hot water if they were to lose to Oklahoma at home. Oklahoma didn't look great against Tennessee. I did look at both teams' injury reports. They're both going to have several key guys out. I wish every conference would do the injury report on Thursdays like the SEC is doing, but I'm going to go with Oklahoma in this one. I just don't think Auburn's got any mojo going right now.
Yeah, I don't either. I think Oklahoma's further along than Auburn is in their rebuild. So I'll go with Oklahoma.
Yeah, this one's more. I don't know. It's interesting to me because I actually watched most of the second half of the North Carolina James Madison game last week because I could not believe what my television was saying across the
right.
I just had to turn it on to see if what I was seeing was true, and I started watching in the second quarter and would go back and forth between games. But obviously, North Carolina loses to JMU and. An optically bad game for Mac Brown and his defense. 53 points given up in the first half, 70 for the game. Lose 70-50, I believe, was the final score. So their offense played well, not well enough. They had some key turnovers, but put enough points on the board to win a game against JMU. That's for damn sure. Mac basically went into the locker room after the game, if you believe the stories that are being told by sites that cover North Carolina football, and basically said, guys, if I'm the problem, I'll resign. Apparently his team did not want him to resign. That got out. There's been all kind of speculation around the program this week. They're at Duke, who is 4-0, which is hard to believe. He's going to play against a head coach that he fired as defensive coordinator, Manny Diaz. How important is this game for Mac's future? And if they lose, does he finish out the season?
Yeah, I mean, losing to JMU like that I don't know that there's any coming back from that, honestly. Duke is definitely a must win, but more than that, they got to show that they got a pulse.
Yeah.
And if even if they do win, they got to do it with some flair, honestly. I mean, that's just horrid that you would give up that many points against James Madison. No disrespect to James Madison, they're a strong program. They've done well, but there shouldn't be close. Not to the tune of scoring that many points. So to answer your question, I think Duke. I think Duke's going to win. They just, they got a good trajectory going right now. And no, I don't think Mac lasts.
Yeah, and as an FSU fan, you would like to see North Carolina lose that game because you got to play both of them. And obviously North Carolina, they lose this game. They may be rudderless the rest of the year, losing to JMU and Duke back to back, and that game's in about 3 weeks for Florida State. So we'll see what happens there. Then, of course, the game of the week on the SEC and national level will be Georgia at Alabama. I know one thing. It'll be a crazy atmosphere in Tuscaloosa. My niece who goes to Georgia is going. She cannot wait. She is so fired up. I believe she's taking my father with her, and they are jacked up about going to that game. But how do you see this game playing out? No surprise here. I'm going with Alabama.
Well, look,
just because.
Runs deep. I get it. Look, games like this, I think the team with the better quarterback is probably going to win. They're the quarterbacks are the difference makers in today's offenses. I don't think Milroe I don't think Milroe is an elite quarterback. I just don't. I mean, he's okay. He can run. He can throw a little bit. He makes some plays, but I just think that Carson Beck is just that much better. I think the team around him is probably more complete. But it is in Tuscaloosa, and that makes it a lot tougher at night. That makes it tough, but I just think the team with the better quarterback is going to win. I'm going Georgia.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, listen, our plan right now is for Mark and myself to be back about 11 o'clock on Saturday night after Florida State's game against SMU. Obviously, there's some factors going in that. Do we have power where we're at? I am in North Georgia, but would like to get home tomorrow to Tallahassee to check on my house if the roads are passable, just because I need to get back and check on it. But I don't know if there'll be power in Tallahassee. But our goal will be to with you on Saturday night for post-game coverage of SMU and Florida State. And we will start that show, if we're able to, 10 to 15 minutes after the game starts per usual. We do hope that everyone is safe and getting ready to ride out this storm. It's a very uncomfortable feeling, having spent as much time in Tallahassee as I have, as long as I've ever lived any place in my life. 9 or 10 years as a teenager / college student, and then obviously 10 years now, going on 10 or 11 years as an adult. Got a lot of friends there, thinking about them. We hope that you guys are all right. The state of Florida is going to take a big hit tonight, particularly in the Tallahassee area, and then it's going to work its way up to where I am in North Georgia. And of course, we're a little safer here, but certainly want to send our thoughts and prayers to all our friends in Tallahassee and across Florida that are going to get hit with this hurricane later tonight when the sun is down. And we hope when the sun comes up tomorrow that all the reports we get are as positive as they can be and are mostly about power outages and minor flooding and those types of things. But we will try to be back here on Saturday night if we have the obviously resources to do so. And by that, I mean power and internet and all those things that we take for granted on a daily basis that some of the folks that we know and care about are not going to have on Saturday and maybe for days and weeks on end. But Mark, I appreciate you joining me as always. If you want to check out more of our pregame coverage, please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. We have our scouting report there. Kurt's got a couple of articles, both offensive and defensive articles on the youth movement and what that's meant to both sides of the ball. And we will be back on Saturday night after the game, God willing, and we hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll see you Saturday night or Monday on the next Seminole Sidelines, however it shakes out. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and good luck to everybody.
Prayers to you, North Florida. Stay safe.